Well, here we are again, doing another video that I said I would not do, but I had to put a close to the Lovecraft country. So, well, with that said, I'm going to be using the cheat sheet a whole lot here, which would be the internet, of course, to cover the last, how much did I do? Um, the last 4 episodes. Now, I left you guys with Meet Me in Daegu, which was one of the best episodes on television this year. It was done very well, connecting with history, putting fictional characters within a historical setting in Korea, giving us different ideas of Tick and his personality and the dark elements of it that we didn't get to see. While the story we see a very sort of person who's in decent shape, who seems like a very positive person, but at the same time he goes and he does some very terrible things, and we realize these two characters, which was Gia and Tick, are kind of monsters in their own way, but they figure sort of a way to try to find a future. But of course, she finds out the truth of Jiha, and then it goes awry. So ultimately, after this episode, I'm saying this is a buildup. This show is building up to a great crescendo. And then they have the next episode, which is episode 7, which is I Am, which deals with Hippolyta. It's her character. She starts figuring things out. And I'm going to quickly go through things because it has been a delay on my end. So I can't be as detailed as most of the people who have talked about these shows. But I'm going to try to do my best just to give you the key points that Hippolyta has figured out different things, obviously, where she's figured out that her husband, George Freeman, has either been killed. She finds the comic book of Orinthia Brew. They pick up the comic book. So, I'm sorry. It's like, I think I said it before, it's like a 9/11 thing where this piece of comic book is left in the rubble. So it's like, how did this thing survive when, there's no remains of George here, but there's remains of this comic book. But we need this red herring to get you to the next stage. So she then goes through this whole thing. She has this satellite of planets, which is a little model that she solves. She finds a key. This is a key that Christina's looking for, that she wants to get. She knows the family has it. There's a bunch of things that are going on in here. So she, of course, uses it and figures the key. She knows where to go. I think it's to Kentucky to like find this molecule that will lead us to some sort of space travel. But it's really the symbolism that's in the comic book of Orinthia Blue is coming into the story. So of course she goes to this time travel thing, and I'm skipping over a lot, but Tick shows up out of nowhere. He's there. These white dudes, the cops, of course, come. The cops are trying to stop them. She gets this wacky machine started, and of course, she's taken to this other realm. Now, ultimately, I'm a big fan of Anjuna Ellis. So this is great to have her in this episode. And she does some many visual things and very many things that you'll watch and you'll be like, wow, this is some things I've never seen in television. So basically, it does have some symbolism, and I'm not sure. I mean, there's many other shows that do a lot of positives in this episodes, but it did sort of play to, I think, the Hebrew Israelites, with the talk of having Black people in space, like ultimately, this sort of thing where he meets, I think it's Serafina, and she's saying, "Stay who she is." That's why the episode 7 is "I Am." So they're trying to state who she is in this futuristic realm, and she states who she is, and she states where she wants to go, and she meets what is it? I'm blowing it. But she goes into the past, and I had to go to my cheat sheet already. So what is it? Oh no, she went to St. Louis. I want to say I had to figure this out. But let's go through this thing. I'm using my cheat sheet, you guys. You guys be here with me for this because I mean, it's a decent episode, but there's some keys that where it falls apart. So, man, that's one thing I was going so well, and sending. I gotta find this out. Josephine Baker. That's what I was looking for. And I immediately felt it was right in, what can I say? I can't say it's on the tip of my tongue. But Josephine Baker, she goes back, I think it's to France, and meets Josephine Baker and go to Paris and she meets Josephine Baker. And Josephine Baker leaves some tidbits to her about finding herself. And she's there for a considerable amount of time. And then she meets back up with George. Then she's actually in the outfit that's in the costume. There's just jumps in time. There's all this magical stuff that's happening in this episode. And with all these great visuals, she meets Serafina again, and that she ultimately says that she wants to go back. She saw her, she didn't meet her full potential, but now going into space, she meets her full potential. Now she's going back to her family. But that's not what happens. And this is what we call a big delay of game, which a lot of people do. Say storytelling wise, they decided to delay the game. We don't see Hippolyta come back. But no, there was another, before I go, there's Amazons getting, African Amazons get attacked. And this whole thing with the character. So her name was, she was Sue in Veep, but it's an actress who I was a big fan of that's in this episode with the Amazons, practicing fighting. But let's see, the actress, I think it's Sophie Bradshaw, and she's I'm a big fan of hers. So she was in there playing one of the African Amazons. So you had this really powerful scene where she's training Hippolyta. I don't want to leave that because she's a definite talent. If you haven't seen Veep, go out to see it. It's all great, every episode. So in this episode, Tick is by himself and he's running to get out of this time travel thing that's out of whack that looks like it's busted. So once we get through that stuff, let's do the cast. I'm still using my cheat sheet still, and I think I lost my original page. This one where we get, because we've already on HBO, they've already done Watchmen that has had the what's the name? Now, ultimately, my issue with the episode 8, which is Chica Bobo, is that they're tied to a historic thing, which is the in 1921 Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre. In the white riots against the black people there and killing and massacring the black people in this town. Since it's already tied there, they've tied the Emmett Till passing to this story. So it's like they're adding a little too much of this history and this sort of thing, in my opinion. I mean, it's a real story. I mean, this one is a little more known than the Tulsa, Oklahoma thing, but having this character be, gotta make sure I know everyone's name, be Diana Freeman's friend, Bobo, which is what you get the name Jigga Bobo, that this being her close friend is a little too close for me. And that's what I'm saying. If they're going to have them in that same town, don't have it be, well, that's her best friend is Emmett Till, that sort of thing. So I don't know. That for me, that's a little too much. If you're already going to have, you already have the Tulsa thing, and that's why I almost wish they didn't have the Tulsa thing. They had something different that people didn't know. And and I'm going to quickly go through this episode because it is showing you what the aspect of the people going in and see. And as gruesome as this is, if they're going to do that, I'm going to have to say, why not? Then, you have so many gruesome things in here, then you have to show it. But then, of course, they had the thing which works on television, the reactions, people throwing up, the hard fact that Emmett Till's mother showed how he looked when they did the taxidermy and had his body presented in the funeral, which was tough for people to take. Of course, it's so hot. But at the same time, this is Diana's story. This is her first fully, and I'm cutting out most of the thing to get to the heart of these stories, which is Diana running around town and her struggle with this. And there's a lot of great symbolism in this episode, but then the cops chase after her and they catch her and they talk to her about magic. There's this terrible symbolism of spitting on Diana, the cops do, and this leads to a curse that's put on her where she ultimately is being chased by these Jigaboo characters. Now, it was a little extra for me, but I think a lot of people, I guess, like the performance of the Jigaboo characters and these being these horror characters. And it was interesting seeing Diana walk through the town because it really, what I hadn't really get to see was the town. And this is the episode where the place they live in really became sort of a character, where we got to see the town, the train, all the stuff of her running through all this thing. And any good sort of show should really give you the town as a character. So this episode, not only being Diana's episode, but giving the main town, not just where the house, I think it's not relative city area where they're at. This gives you what the town looks like. So it was good to see her sort of running around and deal with this curse and her escaping them and her finding her heart, her fighting against them, all these different interesting things. But the big problem is Hippolyta is jumping around through time. So ultimately, they're using time travel as a storytelling element, not as time travel, meaning that if she wanted to get back to her daughter, she could get back the moment she left. They're dealing with it, well, we need Hippolyta not to come back so she can get involved with the cops, she can do all these things on her own, and her get away from Montrose and get away from Ruby. And it's like for all this story to happen, rather than having to deal with the parent and having her run away from the mother. Because then it clogs up the story when you get to the next episode. Of course, we don't even know Hippolyta is going to come back. So the daughter's going through all this, Diana's going through all this. At the same time, the mother's not there. So no matter how much symbolism and historical stuff that you give to this character, to Diana, you also struggle that Hippolyta has abandoned her daughter. And you can't fudge around this, is that at this point, finding out who you are, but having a kid, I don't know if you can do that. And I'm saying I come from a point in my life where my parents were divorced, and it was the average age. I'm a kid, and when I was very young, they're in their late 20s, they're like close to 30, and then when I'm in my teens, they're going into their 30s and 40s. But they were very much attractive people, but they have to throw everything out when I screw everything up. Or they can't find me. And this is the element that kind of get tossed away for a storytelling element. And I can't look past it for the element of story, because this is like it's time travel. She can appear anytime she wants. So of course, these Jigaboo characters, the Jigabobos, they capture her, they they curse her, she's slowly turning into a monster and getting petrified, which is almost like tree limb like, and they can't do anything. And then of course that will lead to the next episode. So now there's a lot of tidbits that are in there. The Tick is running around and stuff. Christina and Ruby's still taking the potion and falling in love and arguments, all that stuff. I'm sorry, I had to keep going. But this, of course, might be my quickest review. So we go to rewind 1912, right? So their idea to cure Diana is to actually go back in time and get the Book of Names and learn all this other stuff about magic. And then they could go and they could cure Diana. So while they're fighting over how did this girl come and get lost? Then Hippolyta comes. After all the interesting stuff happened, all the time when she should have been there, she appears. But she's like, even though that thing is broken, we're gonna go through the time, and I know that there's a possibility that the Book of Names is with the family, even though, because I think there's something connected with Tick. So ultimately, they had to go back in time, right? I apologize again. They had to go back in time to Tulsa, and this is taking a step further past the HBO Watchmen series, saying that these lead characters are going to go back in time right before the massacre of 1921 in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? So, with that said, they go on this big trip. Most of the people are there with them together, and they restart the machine. Well, they can't restart the machine. That now, of course, I remembered it. Hippolyta has these jacks, similar to like you watch Night Flyer, where there's a character who's sort of connected to the machines. She has these colorful jacks in her arms. She can just plug into this machine and she can restart it, right? So she restarted, and she's of course the bridge to open this portal to go back there, so they could find the family, get the book, and not mess up anything, right? So there's another subplot that's going on this one. So we're in episode 9. There's a subplot that possibly Tick is not Montrose's kid, right? Could be George, and of course he's come back and of course when it's revealed that Tick actually went through time, went to the future, not like not the same way that Hippolyta was taken out, but he got to the future and he has a book of Lovecraft Country, right? So he has this book. He's already knows how it ends. He knows what's going to happen to him. He doesn't tell. So he has this reconnect with his father, who of course he called him a gay slur and all that stuff, and all that because we revealed that stuff earlier, right? So with that said, they have a reconnect. But then for me, I didn't like the fact that they decided to have this new subplot of George being Tick's father, and then George, naming the kid George and all this other stuff. Because, I mean, a person that's confused. I mean, there's many families that find out that their father was gay or their mother was gay or something like that, and they have kids and this, that, and other. This stuff happens. So doing this thing to add the extra element that the person who's gay was that having someone else father the kid really is kind of iffy to me, because um, the, the matter of preference and or whatever you're born as doesn't in reality doesn't stop gay men from having children with a heterosexual woman. That's not a thing, but it's an extra element to there to say, hey, it's questionable when Montrose can say, what happened. He knows if he can have a reaction to it, but his reaction says maybe they just had an agreement, right? So that's what they're trying to say, because ultimately he was saying, well, you mean she slept with both of us? They don't say that, so it leads us to make the decision on what happened. So obviously, it seems like Montrose, they had a thing. Of course, he's at this point he has done all this stuff. Obviously, tried to beat his own son, Tick, out of this. He was beating him as a kid. So this setup, the beating, Montrose is out there and he's just drinking because he has this past moment that he remembers that he's going to deal with when he gets to this town. He doesn't care about the mission at all. All he cares about is this one thing that happened to him while he was there, but he's not letting on. So he just breaks out. So then, of course, they have the idea to go to Montrose, to go to Tick's family, go to the house, and someone in the house should be able to figure out where this book is, and they'll use this book, come back, and they'll save the girl and all this other stuff, right? That's the plan. That's the key plan. So, of course, they have to split up. They go to the house. They meet back up with Montrose, right? They're with Montrose. They're in front of the house, and they see Montrose getting beat. Actually, let's just say Montrose's father, Tick's grandfather, is trying to beat the gay out of Montrose. That's what's going on in this story, right? So, in this point, he's getting beat in public, and then I think Montrose's mother comes out and interacts with the Montrose's father and says and almost stops him where he goes and he's getting ready to beat Montrose's Tick's mother, right? That's what this thing is. This moment is that, and then Montrose's mother, I guess it would say Montrose's. Sorry, let's start over. Tick's grandfather, Montrose's father, is beating him, and then Montrose's mother comes out, right? She tells Montrose's father to stop. At that point, Montrose's father is going to beat Tick's mother, and Tick's grandfather is next door and tells him, "Don't discipline my kid." Now, I have to call issue with this too, because the point of the story is, which would correctly work, present day, looking at a scene and saying, this is what you went through, right? This is what you went through. But these characters are not present day characters. These characters are from our past. So someone getting beat by their father, whether they're drunk or this, that, and the other, the thing of having issue with it is one thing, but it's not strange. That period, I mean, up to when friends of mine joked about the parent coming out because of something you did wrong and trying to beat you outside. And where Tick comes from, you could discipline a kid outside. And when Tick's father, even the town could like we're talking about a neighborhood of, like the neighborhood parenting the kids. So this moment where Tick's mother talks back to, Montrose's father is not a realistic thing for, like, if she talks bad to Montrose's father, she could be beat by Montrose's father. I'm sorry, this is what the time is. And we can't correct history. Tick can have the reaction, yes, but we're correcting history to say how you're supposed to behave. And the disciplining of a child, we got to play this. You're dealing with the facts, right? So let's not sort of change history. So Tick's reaction is saying, okay, I see what you did, but then you turn to your father and you're like, what is that? You did the same thing. That's this 80s psychology. Like, how could you do what was done to me? He's like, no, but it was a learned behavior. He's like, no, that's not. It's not this that's a basic story in there. It doesn't work for me, because if you think something's bad, and you don't then do it to someone else. No matter what the 80s psychology tells you to do, that there's this vicious cycle that you immediately just do the same thing over, you repeat. Yes, there's some unconscious things, but when you notice you doing that same thing, you should stop it. And of course, since we're saying that Tick was abused by his father, we're saying Montrose was abused by his father, that means that he did no better. He accepted the circle as is and decided to do, with drinking, to put the same punishment in. You can't, and it destroys that thing. But at the same time, they're characters that wouldn't even recognize it, because it'd be like, kids get beat from, talking wrong to the neighbor 3 houses down. So it's like you could get beat for anything. And I'm saying this is not even looking at the 80s. We're looking at a time when this story sort of takes place. So we can't sort of make up a new reality. They can have the reaction a little bit, but I'm like, that's a little too much of saying they understand it, because they'll be like, all right, what did you do? Like, oh, okay. I mean, this is what people do. This is what if Tick is using the offensive word, then of course he's not, you know, he would sort of understand what's going on. I'm sorry. What can we do? Can't do anything about it. So that was my other major issue. The other hard part is that Letty, she goes in the house where the book of names is. They know about it, but ultimately she has to keep the family in the house to die in the house. Now, this is the that she knows this, and her plan is to be in there with them, but she has this mark of Cain, so she can't die. So I'm like, it's a really tough thing to see. And I mean, before I go away from this, I want to highlight the actress that I haven't seen her in a while, but you know, she's let's go to it. So basically, being one of Tick's ancestors. In there, he meets. Let's see her name. He meets Regina Taylor, who is a great actress. I'm glad to see her again. I mean, I think she was in I'll Fly Away. Let's see. Let me just look at her. I'm cheating already. So why am I playing around here? Let's not cheat. Oh, let's just go to the. I mean, she's been in a bunch of things. Before I get to my favorite thing of hers, you know, I mean, she's in Clockers. Oh yeah, I'll Fly Away. I got it. I got it right. But my favorite thing is Courage Under Fire. Denzel, Meg Ryan, Regina Taylor, Lou Diamond Phillips, Matt Damon. There's got to be some other people. There's a few other people. One guy that's on The Wire. There's a lot of great actors in this piece, and it really holds up. And the characterization. And I don't think Denzel and Regina Taylor are in too many scenes together. Their conversations are over the phone because Denzel's character has a big issue that this weight that he's carrying on him, and you don't. It doesn't. It's one of those things where the storytelling is so strong. You have two characters aren't in the same room, but it's just cut together, and they sell it completely. And then at the same time, the same happens with Denzel and Meg Ryan, who never meet, who never in any way interact, but his emotion for it is very strong. So, and you know, Denzel really pulls off with the wacky military hairdo. So it's a very strong piece. But she is, you know, this woman who's trying to be there for a man. And of course, I've totally gone off track, but I had to bring her back. It's one of my favorite movies. And I was glad to see her in this. And she knows about the Book of Names. She gives him the book. She realized that she has to die and she's going to die there. And I'm just like, okay, yeah. But I don't know. I can't complain. If they did it, they can't change history. These people have to die. So it's just my personal thing. But ultimately, I can't get mad. I guess I can't get mad at that. But there's another bit. And this is the other bit of the story. The other bit is that at the same time, Montrose has decided to go back to the time because he talks about being saved by this guy with the bat and all this other stuff. And he wants to change history because since he's realized that if he's not Tick's father, he can change history without messing up anything, right? So he was connected with this guy or this young boy, and they had a special relationship. Of course, he's gay. He kind of tells him off, and then they separate and they kill this guy, and he is then later saved by this guy with the baseball bat and whatnot. Because Montrose meets up with Tick's mother and meets up with George as kids or young people, and then at the same time they get saved with the guy in the back. So obviously Tick is telling Montrose he can't do it, can't change history, this, that, and the other. They see it, they let it happen, and it's a tough thing to see. And of course, that's when Tick realizes that he's the guy that saved them. So he goes out there and he gives those white dudes a walloping, that he mollywops them with the bat. He tears them apart. Obviously, this is the cathartic scene for us as viewers, but at the same time, we see Hippolyta struggling, keeping the portal open. Now we're dealing with time again. So time for her shouldn't stop. Time for her should be, there. It's like if you watch Star Trek, The City on the Edge of Forever. When they leave and exit, there's no time in there. So it's dealing with time as a storytelling element again. And that this having this effect and this toll on Hippolyta, which leads to her hair turning blue. But I mean, it's a visual scene, so you go with a visual, and you push for the visual more than the actual making sense, in my opinion. But what can you say? I'm guessing people liked it. We also get to see Letty in the house while people are burning. She has this book that can't be burned. And then walking through this town while it's burning and her not being able to be hurt because Christina's given this thing where she can't die and all this other stuff. So we get all those visuals of the massacre, and then, but she doesn't get stopped by any white people and dragged the other way. So it's just having this visual of her walking around in the dress of the time of 1912, but in these walking shoes. So ultimately, they get back, and this leads us to our last episode, which is, of course, called Full Circle. Now, this one, I think I was kind of out of it. So I'm going to try to piece it together as much as I can, because it was there's a lot in one. But of course, they heal up Diana. She's upset with the mother because she left her. To find herself, she abandoned her daughter, which, ultimately, I think the character is a character in the book, she should have took the daughter with her from the beginning. So I don't know. Ultimately, they put things together. Of course, oh man, I don't know I don't think I can summarize this well. So I will quickly say that there's tension between everyone. There's what did I do? Did I miss something? I missed the death of Tick at the house. I think that was in Jacob Bobo. No, that was was that in Rewind? Oh gosh, I tried to do it, y'all, and I guess I'm gonna have to come back because we still have to deal with Tick, the Lovecraftian stuff, and that. So this will be a part one. Because I know I can't cover 10 and the stuff that happens with Tick. So we're ending on them leaving in 9, and it might be a part of 9, but I want to bone up to really give you the end. So I might have to watch those episodes again to give you a clear thing. But the issue that I've had at this point of the story is the delay of game. And I don't want to get into something else which deals with something that happens to Letty and stuff that's happening with Tick to resolve the thing and then bring back in Jiha and all this other stuff. It's really hard to put all these elements. So to give you guys, I think I covered a lot of the stuff of I Am episode 7, 8, and 9. I think it'll be finishing episode 9 just to make sure, but I didn't want it to be totally off. But I think I've covered everything. And my main issue of the delay game with Hippolyta set this show off track, in my opinion. So I kind of was lost in there that once Hippolyta was done in 7, saying she was going to go back, she didn't go back. She doesn't go back till I don't know how many days later. So I'm going to close here. Hopefully you guys come back for the end, and hopefully it'll be a little more concise, but I think I've covered it and tried to talk about the delay of game. We'll get back to the elements of when Tick is back at the house, the idea that Tick almost dies, and I will key that into, connect it to the correct episode of him going back to Letty's house and the prophecy almost coming true well before the last episode. So I don't want to mess this up. So I'm going to stop here, and then we'll get into episode 10 so it's a little more clear. All right. Thank you.